welcome to another episode of Creating Powerful Impact. I'm your host, Shay Wheat, founder of Grace and Ease Productions, where we support entrepreneurs like you to profitably scale your business with events, allowing you to make sales faster with greater predictability and less team burnout. I'm excited to introduce you to today's guest. Y'all listen to this. He has hired and trained hundreds of employees over his 35-year career as an entrepreneur. However, at only age 4, he found himself literally at death's door following a devastating accident that left his body covered in third-degree burns. Now, he's determined to not let tragedies solely define his life story, so he set out to make a name for himself. He has achieved multi-millionaire status 4 distinct times in 4 separate industries: in an import-export company for machinery, investments, including a chain of Italian coffee bars, a residential construction company, and lastly, land development and construction. Now, each success was a feat from starting from ground zero and meticulously building his wealth anew. Please help me welcome Jose Berlanga to the Creating Powerful Impact stage. How are you?
Hello, Shay. It is wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me in your show.
Absolutely. I'm super curious. Like my burning question to start us out with is, what is your secret for scaling not one, but 4 different industry specific businesses?
Oh, yes, very interesting because I don't believe that there's a secret. Perhaps the secret is out and it's a matter of following what we all know. We already know what needs to be done, but the secret is to actually execute some very, very basic steps, which is to want it. A lot of times I talk about being sure about what you really, really want out of your life. From a very young age, as you mentioned, I've encountered adversity and problems that perhaps forced me to grow up to mature at a very young age, perhaps forced me to start understanding about life, how to become successful from a very young age was important. I did not want to fall into the trap of becoming the victim because I began being treated like that as a child. I grew up very, very differently than most people. We will not get into that subject, although it's fun for me to, a lot of people think that I don't like talking about it because it bothers me or because there's some traumatic experiences behind it. Absolutely not. I love and enjoy talking about anything and everything that has happened to me in my life, but I avoid making it the center of attention in my activities. I've avoided that. I do not want to be, whether it's treated or perceived as the person who went through all those things. I want to be looked at as the person who gets things done, who has the focus, the attention, the ambition, the desire to do things. And that's where I focus my attention, which is why I rarely talk about my childhood or my life experiences in that sector, in that area. But what I do talk a lot about is business, entrepreneurship, how to improve yourself, how to become better. And getting back to the subject, I tell people the famous saying, be careful what you wish for. Do you really want to succeed? Because it is possible, assuming that you understand what it means and what it takes. When you match those two, understand the requirements, the prerequisites of success, and actually execute them, you have much better chances. There are very few people that are willing to take the sacrifice, to accept the pain, to tolerate the discipline, the hard work, and everything that comes with it, to a point where it's there's a moment in time where you start doing well and you don't even realize it because you've been so busy just doing what you need to do every single day of your life, following schedules, routines, knocking off things on your list to do. If you have that mentality of progress and that mentality of entrepreneurship, let's call it, And you don't necessarily have to own your own business in order to acquire this personality. The nature of creating work for yourself, of remaining busy, of always wanting to learn more, to figuring out how to make it to the next level, so that little by little you start improving your life, and at some point you don't even know how you get there or how you got there. It's just wanting it. But if you are not one of those personalities, which is perfectly fine, if you want other things out of life, more relaxation, more of a bohemian style lifestyle, that's fine too. But you cannot want one thing and act in a different way that has nothing to do where you want to end up at the end of your career. You have to match those two. And success, back to your question, is the secret was to understand that it was going to require long hours, a lot of sacrifice, a lot of focus, that it was not going to be consistent wins and consistent progress, understanding that there were going to be good days, but in reality, there's going to be more bad days in the journey of getting your career established and growing within the business world. So if you understand that and you stick to it over and over and over and just keep moving forward, no matter what, we all hear it all the time, but it really sounds easier than it is, because there's not many days when we just don't want to deal with the majority of things that revolve around becoming successful. Most of them are tedious, annoying, boring, troublesome, and they're not necessarily exciting in the process of becoming the person that you want to become. So many people, although we start with dreams, we grow up thinking about all of these things we want to do and we want to achieve. There comes a time, the moment in time, the reality kicks in, where in order to get there, I'm going to have to do a lot of things that are not pleasurable, that are not simple. So at that point, we start thinking that maybe this business of success is not for me. Maybe it's for somebody else. It's too difficult. It's not fun. It's not as easy as I perceived or I thought it was going to be. There's all of these activities that are just somewhat painful. So maybe we start thinking that things are easier for everybody else, not for me. And the truth is that they're difficult for everyone.
I agree. I think we
Rarely
all run
because
into it.
anything happen just by luck or accident. So and anyway, so that is the answer. You just have to put up with everything good and bad that comes with every situation and have a plan. Understand clearly where you're headed. Where do you want to get?
Yeah. Well, and I believe our audience are the ones that are in it, right? They're like, I'm in it for the long haul. And now I need to continue to learn the little nuances that, will help me get to the next level. When I'm in the muck, how do I move through it? And what I tend to hear a lot coming up for our visionaries is, it's revolving around team and scale and leverage and growth. And so if you were speaking to somebody in that moment, they're looking to go to the next level. They're looking to go from multiple 6 to 7 figures. They're looking to bring on new team. Is that even the next level for them? What would you say for somebody? Let's stick to the team for first question here. What would you say is the thing they need to be thinking about when they're bringing on team? Is it an employee? Is it a senior leader? Like, what do we think about?
Well, there's several aspects to this question. It's very interesting how there's a number of things that will occur. Before we get into the type of person, the type of employee, I want to mention that this is a constant mental adjustment that business people need to make. It is completely different to treat a baby than a toddler, than a teenager, than an adult. a business goes through very, very similar phases where every stage of your business is completely different. It needs to be treated differently, and you need to think differently about it. When you're starting a business, you're going to have to execute a lot of tasks. And mostly everything you do has meaning physically, mentally, emotionally. As you start growing, it starts becoming lesser important about the number of things you do every day than the quality of things that you start exercising, the mission and the message, the identity, the leadership that you bring into your business. Because at some point, there's only so much you can do as an individual. Whatever business it is, whether you're building furniture or electronics or homes or your own restaurants. When you started your first one, you could be everything. You could be the host, you could run back to the kitchen, you can take care of people, you can do a number of things physically. When you start growing and turn it into a chain, it's not going to how much you run around back and forth is not going to make that big of a difference. It starts becoming about how do you get people to follow you, to understand your mission, to agree with your beliefs, to love your brand, to create something that everyone wants to be a part of. So if you don't start evaluating and understanding that now it is about me delivering the right message regularly, to clarifying my mission, my vision, where it is that I want to go with this business, what is the meaning of this business, what is the transition that we're going through, and get everyone to be on board and appreciate where you're going. Little by little, you start getting your team to participate in that objective. Becoming a leader, it's easier said than done. You have to have that identity, that personality, the passion, the need for your team to be on board. And you cannot fake it. You either have it, you either believe it, or it's just not there. So that transition needs to be part of the program. And just to wrap up, you're going to identify the moment that you physically cannot take care of certain things. Yes, my specialty has been startup companies where literally it's a one-man show or two partners and you distribute the responsibilities. The first employee I always bring in represents the load of work that has enough of any given task, whether it's operations, purchasing, accounting is the most popular, bookkeeping, because you want enough work in one area of the company where someone can take care of just that one thing. And it has to also be one of the activities that you're not crazy about doing. You need to understand it because you don't want to hire people to do jobs that you just don't understand. That's against perhaps the nature of growing. But you want to pick an area that's not fun for you, that there's enough of it that's starting to drag you down, and pass it on. And the advice that I give is when you start hiring people, be extremely specific about what it is that they're going to do within one area. A lot of leaders make this mistake. I've done this, and all of us, hey, I need an assistant. Let me hire someone. And this person is going to shadow me and do a little bit of random stuff. And before you know it, that person is just as confused because they're all over the place. They don't have specific tasks, missions. They're just there to assist. And all of a sudden, you're creating this world of people helping you that have no defined manuals of operations or activities or responsibilities, and everybody's doing everything. And the growth becomes painful and impossible.
So do you have to slow down to be able to speed up? So if you don't have those manuals, those SOPs in place, like actually take the time to write out and what does this job entail and what do I need to be taking off my plate to then be able to explain to somebody else of what they're picking up?
Absolutely. Take a minute, sit back. I always say that it's the initial stages of growth and the early stages of hiring someone it's going to get better before it gets, I'm sorry,
Worse
it's
before
going to get
better.
worse before it gets better.
Yeah.
Because you're going to spend not only time that you don't have already to train someone else, but they're not going to be able to do a whole lot for you in the early stages. You're going to have to bring someone in to start training them, to start explaining how it is that you want things to be done, what it is that you see in this business happening. But I completely agree with you. You have to pause, take a minute, create a manual, even write it down. I've always been very big on describing not just the job description, but details about what it is that this person needs to achieve when they come on board. And don't just generalize it. That's something else that I do. I try to grab one area of the company at a time that requires help. Next, you go, okay, if you're in the manufacturing, I need someone to spend more time in, dealing with the machines or the production. Then eventually you need, okay, I can't be dealing with the customers all the time. So you start passing on, and here's a trick, one thing at a time, not, hey, help me around with random things. That is a big mistake because you lose focus. People lose focus. Not everybody is able to organize themselves in their time and organize the priority in which things need to occur. You need to be the provider of those priorities.
So if we could go back to the point you were making earlier about like being the leader that instills the vision and essentially leads your team. So let's say you've got, 5 people or more on your team doing all the things, they're up and running, they've been onboarded, like they're doing their job. How do you become the leader? Like, what do you need to either focus on, learn more how to lead? Is there something about your leadership that you go, okay, this is kind of a system that I use every time to continue to create that community and create that bond so that they want to stay with you versus like having the churn of team?
Absolutely, absolutely. That is a very deep question because it requires you to now not only evaluate your employees, but evaluate yourself. What type of personality are you? What are your management skills? I would not start hiring, directing, or leading a group of people without really even understanding what my set of management skills and my style of management is. There is a very big difference on how to manage different types of employees in different types of industries. Small businesses are a little bit different because you're forming a family. In a corporation, you're becoming more cookie cutter in delivering specific messages. But let's deal with a smaller business. If people don't respect you, they're not going to follow you. There has to be a level of affection about the mission that you're exercising. They have to like you, they have to understand you, but they also have to respect you because this is not an entertainment place or a hobby. This is a place where we produce, where we make money, where we are productive in every sense of the word. But a lot of leaders lead by force, by being tough, by being strict, by being annoying, by being just by the word itself, bossy. A lot of people don't respect that. You don't respect authority. You respect someone who you admire their beliefs, their thoughts, and their ideas. And if you don't know how to convey those properly, it's going to be hard for your team to follow your footsteps. So you have to understand how to become part of the group, but still be respected as the leader. Not to mix those two. You cannot become buddies with everybody in your company because before you know it, it's all a mess and there's very little productivity. But you can't go to the other extreme where everybody either fears you or everybody dislikes you. So there's a fine line between mixing all those two and maintaining the line of respect. So once you start growing, it's more of that, where you have to understand each and every one of your employees as well, because not everybody's driven by the same things, particularly in a small company, before you get to the point where you actually have an official human resources department where they can specialize in monitoring, understanding, and evaluating your team, which I think that's a little bit of a step up. But let's go back in the earlier years where you have to deal with most of your employees directly. You have to, getting back, spend a little time understanding your job as the leader, which is to identify yourself and identify the personalities of your team. Some people react better to acknowledging their participation. Some people react better to bonuses. Some people react better to becoming part of a greater mission and a purpose. Some people love titles. Some people love teamwork. If you don't understand the drivers in each one of your team members, you may push the wrong buttons and not get the best out of them because you're not really getting into their brain and what the job really means to them.
Yeah. So are you utilizing things like DISC, human design? Are you utilizing those types of tools? Were there some books or trainings that you went through when you personally were learning kind of your management leadership style? And like, what do you use to actually figure out who your employees are and what their drivers are?
I'm very old-fashioned. I'm not a high-tech AI type of person, which also leads to mistakes. And I'll start by saying you need to, just as you need to identify the right people, you also need to identify when you made a mistake. Part of my errors throughout my career have been to give a team member too much time to prove him or herself, hurting my own business. Instead of,
Yeah.
I've been told that at times I give more effort, I give more attention to saving an employee than saving the company. And if you hire someone, you give it the right amount of time, and at some point you move them somewhere else or you make a change, because we are here to make progress within the business, not to babysit people either. That's part of the leadership aspect. You gradually start identifying those personalities, but you start making those decisions quicker and identify, because remember, some people are wonderful during the interview process. They know how to sell, they know how to talk, they know how to present themselves, but they're very poor executors. And some people, vice versa, they are horrible. They're nervous. They don't know what to say. They don't know how to say it. They don't know how to explain who they are and how they do things. But man, they're amazing once you put them to the task. That's a tough one. I don't know that there's any books that can really help you have that an evaluation process and be a good judge of character. You just have to develop it. And the advice is accept if you made a mistake, move on to the next one, pivot and make the change if it's necessary. The other advice that I give, we make a big mistake as leaders. When we interview or hire someone, we spend more time selling ourselves, our company, our mission, our objectives, who I am, so on and so forth, and selling who we're hiring. There'll be plenty of time for that after we hire them. Give the person you're interviewing a chance to really introduce him or herself. We neglect to do that. I've made those mistakes in my earlier years because I was so excited to bring someone on board that I wanted to get them pumped up. And instead of that, I was selling them on my mission instead of allowing them to sell themselves to me as to why they should be part of this organization. So allow them to communicate, allow them to express. And another very big one, create the right questions, understand them, understand their personality. Don't give them the answers to the test. Hey, are you organized? Hey, are you punctual? Hey, do you like this kind of? No. Tell me about you. Tell me about your day. Tell me how you go about doing this and that, the do's, the don't. Let them express and tell you who they are, how they solve problems, how they organize their files. I'm big on organizational skills. I'd rather have someone very organized than someone very capable or someone very trained and educated. If you're highly organized, you will get things done much more effectively than if you're just very intelligent, but you're a very messy individual. So organization. And when you ask those questions without giving them the answers, it allows you to really understand how they would take over certain scenarios and certain tasks and obligations. So prepare your questions that you as a leader are going to allow you to examine an individual through their responses without giving them the answers. So they need to sometimes even be vague, but you just want to know how they would act in certain circumstances. And there's sometimes you want to make questions that have no right or wrong. They're just telling you how the person acts and executes things under a number of different scenarios.
Totally makes sense. Yeah, I like the open-ended kind of questions that allows them to show you their personality. And if you did have the background of knowing human design or knowing all of those kinds of things, then you could be like, oh, okay, great. This is probably how they'll interact, or this is how I need to be able to speak to them kind of in their quote unquote language, right? But it's through those open-ended questions. I like that a lot, Jose.
Yeah.
This has been really awesome and amazing. I appreciate all of your insight. If somebody was interested in wanting to connect with you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
My website, joseberlanga.com, my YouTube accounts, and all the traditional social media accounts. I've been a very anonymous person in the business world, and so this is exciting. This is fun for me to be in your show and to do these type of presentations. I love them, but I will make an effort to participate more now and start being more available to do questions, Q&A sessions with our followers.
Beautiful. I love that. Thank you. So we will have the link to that in the show notes. My last question for you is, what is a takeaway or a memorable note you'd like to leave our audience with today?
There's an endless number of them, and I always have a very, very difficult time selecting one. But I'll pick one randomly. Learn to define yourself. Don't let anyone define who you are based on what they think your aptitudes, your abilities, your work ethics are. Sometimes people are judged too quickly because they immediately assume that because of your career, because of the type of work, you must have this personality. I've made it a point over my life to surprise people by being myself and making sure that I am the one who determines who I am, my personality, my achievements, my goals, not necessarily by what people put me in a box and say, oh, this is the guy who does this type of work. Don't limit yourself in your personality. Dictate who people recognize as yourself. Only you can create your own identity. You can create your own goals. You can create your own success. Don't limit it. Create your own opportunities. Don't waste time. Take advantage of all your spare time. We waste so much spare time that we don't realize how much more we can get out of life if we just take advantage of all of the little moments here and there when we're actually doing something. I attribute a lot of my success in becoming aware of the clock, of time. of taking advantage of making sure that every day I do something productive, not just that it needed to get done today, but that will help me get to the next level in my life. So use your time wisely and make sure that you set your goals and follow them and follow the path in a way that you understand it at your own pace. So
I love it. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. And I want to thank our audience for being with us on another episode of Creating Powerful Impact. I'm excited for you to take all of these lessons and these resources that you've learned here today, implement them, and create even more impact in your world. Until next time, have an outstanding rest of your day. Take care. Thank you so much for listening to the Creating Powerful Impact podcast. If you are a successful coach, speaker, author, or thought leader who would like to be on this program, simply visit creatingpowerfulimpact.com/guest. If you are someone who got something out of this interview, would you please do me a favor and share this episode on social media? Just do a quick screenshot with your phone and text it to a friend or post it on your socials. Also, if you know somebody that would be a great guest, tag them on social media to let them know about the show and include the hashtag Creating Powerful Impact. I love seeing all of your posts and great guest selections. We are regularly putting out new episodes and content. To make sure you don't miss any episodes, go ahead and subscribe. Your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show, and they really mean a lot to me and my team. Want to know more about us? Head on over to our website, graceandeaseproductions.com, or follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram. Just look for Grace and Ease Productions on your favorite platform. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.